He said, be brave, my son, I'll be home soon. The boy held on to hope till he got that awful news. And as they folded up the stars and stripes, 21 guns pointed towards the sky. As the shots rang out, he flinched a little each time. Then a soldier in his best dress walked up to him, and you know the rest.
This show is brought to you by Operation Encore. Operation Encore is a 501c nonprofit that is helping change the lives of our veteran community. Let me tell you a little bit about what they do. They are helping veterans get into the music industry. They're helping them learn the business, get songs recorded, and not only that, making dreams happen. You know, most of these veterans have got the idea of becoming a musician way before they went into the military. And Operation Encore is filling that gap from while they served in the military and helping them change their lives and live out those dreams. Operation Encore is a nonprofit. You can go to this link right there and click on it, give them a little help, hit that donate button, follow them, learn about all the great things that Operation Encore does for our veterans. Hey, welcome everybody to Spirits and Stories. This is your host, Donald Dunn, man. Hey, I'm excited. You know, today I've always been fascinated with Alaska. And today when I came across this guest bio, I had to have her on. She is an amazing person, accomplishing way more than I am doing. But when I seen what she did, I had to bring it to everybody else's attention. So let me introduce Miss Milton, an Australian kite surfing and snow kiting champion, big mountain skier, captivates audiences worldwide with her dynamic storytelling and profound insights. Spending 3 months each year in Alaska, she passionately promotes extreme sports, coaching others to excel and embrace the thrill of adventure. Let's bring on Miss Milton. How's it going?
Hi, Donald. How's it going? Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today.
Yeah, I mean, with a bio like yours, I had to have you on. It was amazing. Where did you start? I'm sure you've been doing this for a long time, but where did this come from? Where did skiing attract you?
Well, I'm so grateful that I grew up in Australia and my parents actually had a ski store from when I was born. Now, a lot of
Okay.
people don't realize we have snow in Australia, but only a couple of hours from my hometown, we had the snowy mountains, and my mum and dad would take my brother and I skiing every weekend during winter. And they had a ski shop that sold ski gear in the wintertime and then sports gear in the summer. So I'm so grateful that I've been skiing since I was 2 years old. And my dad was also a sailor. So in the summer months, we switched skiing to sailing.
I'm seeing where this ties together now. So in your bio, it says that you were a snow kiting champion. So I'm assuming that means you were competing. When did you start competing?
So I've been a very competitive person all my life, and I think that comes down to my brother and I always competing in the different sports that we were doing, including skiing, including sailing. The sailing turned into windsurfing because we lived inland on a lake. And my brother actually became incredibly competitive. He lost his leg to cancer when he was 9 years old. And one of the things that really helped him get back to life was skiing. Losing his leg really slowed him down in a lot of ways, whereas as soon as you put a ski on snow and it slides, you have that speed back in your life. And my parents were very active into getting my brother into some disabled skiing programs, and he became really good at skiing on one leg. And in fact, he competed for Australia in the Paralympics and was the first ever Australian to get a gold medal and he's in the Australian Sporting Hall of Fame. He's quite the legend, and so I was always wanting to, compete for how many trophies we had on mum and dad's, mantelpiece. And so, of course, I've been into competitive sports all my life, and snow kiting was no different.
Yeah, I mean, wow, coming from a family like that, and then turning it, I'm assuming this is also your career that you've chosen as well. So let's start with, let's give everybody a little background. What exactly is it that's happening?
Well, I'm talking about snow kiting today, and you can see the picture in the background right here. That's me skiing, and I'm flying a kite at the same time. So very similar to, maybe you've seen some kiteboarding or kite surfing in the waves. This is the winter version of it, where we can use that kite to tow us around with our skis or our snowboard on. And when I discovered that I could put my two loves of skiing and sailing together in the one sport, it was just an instant love.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was watching some videos of people doing it on YouTube, and how some of these kites look pretty good size. How do they stay on the ground?
Well, the kites come in different sizes, and you're going to choose your kite size dependent on, one, the standard of your skills. So when you're starting out, you'll start on a smaller kite. As you get better, you'll be able to handle a bigger kite, and also the wind speed. So if it's very light wind, we need a much bigger kite to tow us around.
Mhm.
If it's strong wind, and I love going out when it's nearly gale force winds in 30 to 40 knots. I'll use a much smaller kite. And the kite is designed to tow you, on the flats, but also tow you up mountains. And depending on where you position the kite in the air, is whether it will tow you on the ground or pull you up into the air if you're wanting to jump.
Yeah, I seen some of the videos I seen. Some of the guys were airborne for a pretty good minute. I It reminded me back of people in the army jumping out of aircrafts. He was just kind of hanging out there in the air, looking at people. I was like, man, this is insane. And then you say skiing uphill, man, that is something you do not hear all the time. We'll just use the kite and it'll pull us right up the hill as we're skiing.
That's actually my favorite thing to do, Donald. I grew up in ski resorts, as we all. That's where we build our skills and we get lessons. I was a ski instructor at first, and then I discovered after my first trip to Alaska how much fun you can have in the backcountry, away from the ski resorts, away from the lifts. But it actually takes quite a bit of energy and effort to put the skins on the bottoms of your skis or your splitboard and actually hike up a mountain. That
Yeah.
takes a lot of energy. And so when I discovered kiting, and I discovered that the kite could actually tow me up the mountain, it was like having my own personal ski lift in the backcountry. It was absolutely incredible to be getting up the mountain using just wind power.
Yeah, man. I'm not gonna lie. When I seen the videos, it looked like so much fun. Um, I just can't imagine. How fast would you say that you've been when you're skiing? When you're getting the winds that you like? How fast do you think you're actually going?
Well, I have clocked myself. As I've mentioned my brother before, he actually holds the world's speed skiing record for a person with one leg, and he's actually the fastest Australian skier. He beat all the two-legged guys too. So that, having that record challenged me to see how fast I could go. And I'm going to talk kilometers for you. Sorry about that, but
That's okay.
over 100 kilometers an hour I was clocked with my skis.
I want to say that's pretty close to like 50, 60 miles per hour. Wow. I can't even imagine that. I mean, it's one thing to be on a motorcycle going like that, but you're talking snow, terrain. I mean, that is insane. I bet you that's one heck of an adrenaline rush.
Well, they don't call me Adrenogen for nothing.
I can see why. I can see why. So 3 months out of the year, you're in Alaska, right? Is that where you're working and teaching and stuff like that?
Well, that's actually a great story, Donald. You know, an Aussie girl. How does an Aussie girl end up spending 3 months a year in Alaska? And I remember the moment I made that decision very, very well. I was in Australia, and I had a sports store myself. As my parents aged, I sort of took over their store and had a separate retail outlet called Adrenaline Sports, and that was where we had all the snowboards, the skateboards, the rollerblades, and I had a staff of all these, you know, young fit guys, and we were standing there watching a snowboarding movie on the big screen. It was
Mhm.
incredible. These guys were in Alaska, getting out of helicopters, skiing these huge big mountains, and it was it was a moment that I went, I really wanted, I'm gonna do that one day. And I remember all the boys next to me going, "Yeah, right, Jen. Yeah, sure." And that was the only challenge I needed, was for somebody to think that I couldn't. And all of a sudden it became a huge passion and desire of mine, and a challenge to figure out how I could go to Alaska to go heli skiing. Well, it was actually heli snowboarding back then. I was riding a snowboard more than my skis, and I eventually made that happen, and it was one of the most incredible life-changing moments of my life. It was you know, be careful what you wish for, because I remember when the helicopter dropped me off on top of that mountain, just being more scared and feeling more fear than I'd ever felt in my whole life, and having to find that courage to drop into this big mountain, just like those guys had done on the movie we were watching. And
Mhm.
that was really the first step of me learning how to overcome fears, and to find that courage. I like to call it my courage cocktail, because it's a combination of fear, and the
Mhm.
fear wanting to make you run away, and a combination with that of the adrenaline, which is the excitement part of how good it feels if you can overcome that fear and drop into that big mountain. And that trip changed my life forever. Not only did I you know, feel like a superhero when I was actually riding those big mountains, but I met a lot of incredible people living in Alaska that really had a lifestyle I'd never seen before.
Mhm.
I'd been in Australia working in this store, talking about skiing, talking about snowboarding, but these people were actually doing it, and they were living it. They were living. Some of them were living without running water in the wintertime, without heat. They were so passionate about being outside, and I wanted some more of that. And I actually, there were a few days in the week that I was there where the weather wasn't great, and the helicopter couldn't fly, and we couldn't go heliboarding again. And one of the heli ski guides, he was pretty cute. He had a kite, and I had already sort of started my kite learning journey, and he and I went out there and flew kites together. On the airstrip next to the heli ski operation, and I got my first rides being towed with a kite and my snowboard, and that day is pretty special for me, because I fell in love with the sport of snow kiting, and I also fell in love with that heli ski guide, who's now my husband of 16 years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Man, so this really has been a lifestyle. I mean, it has brought your family together. And is that what you still do every year? You go back over there for 3 months to ski yourself? Then is that what's okay?
I do. My husband's still one of the lead heli ski guides up in Alaska, and I'm so proud of him. He really makes people's dreams come true, and I needed to figure out how I was going to, you know, make this holiday location part of my life and bring in an income. And what I
Mhm.
discovered was that when the helicopters can't fly, there's a lot of extreme athletes like myself who are looking for something fun to do. They want to
Yep.
ski, they want to be on the mountain. And so now I actually get to take all of the heli ski clients out there snow kiting on those windy, stormy days when other people might think there's nothing to do. They are the days we're out there having a good time. So I'm full-time, backcountry guiding and teaching people how to snow kite.
Wow. Okay. Have you so in Australia when you're not up there, is you're still working the store, or do you have clients in Australia as well that are learning this in the wintertime?
Well, after that original trip to Australia to Alaska that changed my life, when I went back to Australia, I realized that this really wasn't the life for me, that I'd been following my parents' dream of having retail stores for long enough, and I ended up selling my business, selling my car, my house, everything, and moving my life to the US to be with the man that I love.
Okay.
But I couldn't really give up Australia. It meant a lot to me, and I wanted to see my friends, my family every year, and so I would go back in the winter time, which is the opposite season. So it worked out really well that I
Mhm.
could be in Australia from sort of June, July until October, and also be on snow. I worked in Thredbo, which is one of our biggest ski resorts, as a backcountry guide. But all of a sudden, there were so many people that wanted to learn how to snow kite out there that it ended up being my full-time business, teaching people there as well. So I was really just going from one hemisphere to the other, taking all my ski gear and my kites with me, and get a lot of joy out of sharing my passion of wind and kites and skiing with others.
Yeah, absolutely. And Australia is also on my list of places. There's only two overseas countries that I want to go to. I've been to a lot of places through the military, but there's only two places that I really want to go see, and Australia is one of them, and Ireland is the other one. And so that those are on my bucket list to go and explore and check out. So I'm jealous because you also been in Alaska and Australia. You've been in like the best places of the world. Those are kind of like God's countries.
I do feel very, very grateful, Donald, to have that balance in life. And now that you've met me, look me up if you're ever making it down under, and I'd be happy to show you around.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So let me ask you this. Obviously, the sport is dangerous. What are if somebody is wanting to get into this, and they know how to ski, they know how to snowboard? What are some precautions? What are things that you would advise them to look at and maybe pursue? Because a lot of people when they start looking at stuff, they look at the stuff they need and they spend more money on that than they necessarily do the safety equipment because that's not the fun part, you know. So what would you recommend if somebody was to want to get in this, and how would they start?
Well, really, there's three parts to the sport of snow kiting. You've got your skiing and your snowboarding, and it's important to be at, an intermediate to advanced level where you're starting to crave going out away from resorts and out into the backcountry. So if you're just a beginner, I'd recommend going back to the ski resort, getting some lessons and improving those skills. The second skill set that you need is the kite flying. Now, kite flying isn't dangerous. I recently up in Alaska this season, I went to the elementary school and I did kids kite making and taught over 100 kids to make kites. And it gave me so much joy and it gave them so much joy to be running around flying a kite. So that just shows you that we can start small. We can
Mhm.
start very small with a kite, but I do recommend getting some lessons. There's some really good instructors out there. I am certified by the International Kiteboarding Association, and every couple of years I redo my certification to be a kite instructor. I teach people not only on snow, but in the water as well. If you can't find a snow kite instructor because we're few and far between, you can go and get a kite lesson from a kiteboarding instructor, and there's lots of those guys around in some beautiful locations, hopefully not too far from you. And you can start building those kite skills. I recommend buying a trainer kite as your first kite. You could buy the big ones, but if you're going to have a big kite that you're strapped into a harness, it's important to have somebody with you that's either an instructor or somebody with some skills that can be your kite buddy. But if you buy a trainer kite, it's the type of thing that you can do by yourself safely. You can go down the beach or go to a park where you've got some clean wind flow, and you can start getting your hours up. Just like a pilot learning to fly a plane, it all comes down to building up your experience, which only comes with putting the hours in. So to be safe, you can buy that trainer kite for a couple of $100, and that's all you need, apart from some courage and a good place to go and fly it. Because then when you get to put the two skills together, the skiing or the snowboarding and the kite, you've got those two skills separately, and then add them together, you're going to have much better success. Now, there's a third skill set that I mentioned that I haven't told you about yet, and that is backcountry skills. When we're in the ski resort, we have ski patrol. We have people there to look after us if something goes wrong. And I honestly believe that snow kiting is no more dangerous than skiing or snowboarding without the kite. But as soon as you're outside a ski resort without those, incredible people there to help us if something goes wrong, it's important we have our own knowledge and tools in our backpack in order to stay safe out there. So going out with a backcountry guide or doing an avalanche course, learning those backcountry skills is really, really important, so that when we're away from the resorts, we can evaluate the weather, we can evaluate the location and look for dangers. We can look for any observations in the weather or the snowpack that might be a danger, that is a red flag that says, hey, we shouldn't go today. And also having the first aid kit and avalanche tools in our backpack in order to help our friends. And anybody who does a lot of backcountry skiing knows that you shouldn't go on your own. You should have a buddy there, and we need to have the tools in order to rescue each other and be our own ski patrol. So by building up the skills of skiing, snowboarding, kiting skills, and backcountry skills, those three different areas together make up the sport of snow kiting.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And I could just see, especially a lot of us veterans, we're one of those guys that we skip the beginning level and try to go straight to the advanced level, and we say we'll figure it out as we go. But I don't think this is one of those things that you want to try to figure it out as you go. So I do recommend, just like you said, crawl before you walk, and then as your skills improve, move forward. You mentioned about the outback, right? And I know for a fact, because I follow a lot of stuff with Alaska, because I love hunting, and I want to go up there and go fishing, hunting. I love the outdoors. And do you guys experience a lot of the wildlife up there in Alaska? I'm sure you do.
Oh, yes, I do, and I'm a huge wildlife fan. In Australia, I love, being out there skiing and seeing kangaroos and wombats and wild brumbies. And of
Mhm.
course, one of my bucket list activities when I first went up to Alaska is I really wanted to see a polar bear, and I was able to make that dream come true more than once, actually.
Yeah,
And that's quite the story, the polar bear story. And I love seeing the bear, seeing the moose, seeing the elk, seeing the eagles.
yeah,
And I mean, I'm so grateful that I get to experience everything that Mother Nature and our universe has to give us, because I spend a lot of times outdoors, and that's the benefit of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, that's the same with me. I want to go up there. I don't necessarily want to go up there to hunt bear or moose or anything like that, because I'm not a big trophy hunter. I like to eat and put food in the freezer, and that's it. But just to see, these kind of animals are amazing. I mean, and when you're up there, I can just imagine you do have to have some skills, like you said, because you're not the top of the food chain anymore when you're up there, and you have to adjust and plan for that. So I'm sure when you guys are out there, you guys take guns with you and stuff like that as well. Um, when you've seen the polar bears, I've heard they're very aggressive. Is that true?
Well, there's a lot of people perceive different things about polar bears, and maybe what I believe is a little different to most. I like shooting polar bears through the camera lens,
Uh-huh.
rather than with guns. And my first trip up to Barrow was out there with a photographer who had permission to go out there, and he taught me a lot. That was his full-time job, taking people out to see the polar bears. He did scientific research, and I think, again, with anything we do, as I've mentioned, it's important to do our research, do our learning, to learn and find out. But I was so lucky to be invited to go up to a place called Kaktovik. Now, Kaktovik is an island actually off the north coast. You wouldn't believe it's an island, because actually there's ice connecting it most of the time, and it just looks like it's connected to the land. But I was invited up there to teach the Inuit kids how to fly kites, which I was so honored to get this opportunity to share my love with these kids in just a remote place in Alaska. And when I did my research about this village, I discovered that it was the polar bear capital. And in the summer months, that's where all the photographers go, and it's really hard to get a hotel room in Kaktovik in the summer, because it's just so popular for polar bear viewing. But I was going there in the wintertime when it was cold, everything's covered with snow, and I was, very focused on just teaching these kids to fly kites, and to do some snow kiting in the area myself. And the first question I asked is, am I going to see a polar bear? And I was told by the locals that no, this is the wrong time of year. Those bears are out on the ice fishing a long way from town that time of year, and the chances were nearly zero that I would see a polar bear. I'd have to come back in August, they told me. And so all of a sudden my fear level went down. Being an Australian, I'm not actually allowed to carry a gun with me, but I felt that it really wasn't the time of year that I would need one. And so
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time skiing around the village, exploring, going into every restaurant or house that I could, and looking at these polar bear pictures. And I was fascinated, asking all the kids their stories. And of course, every single one of them had had a polar bear encounter, which was so fascinating to hear. But when I got up there, a huge storm came in, and the wind tends to follow me around. They call me Windy Jen, as well as Adrenogen. And the wind is my best friend. I get to play with my kite in the wind all the time. And the wind tends to follow me everywhere I go. And when I arrived, there was no wind. And the very next day, huge storm came in. We're on the Beaufort Sea, and that's where the wind scale, the Beaufort wind scale, is from. And it was blowing 50, 60, 70 knots, and it was a ground blizzard. You could hardly see anything. So we had to hunker down indoors for the majority of the time. And all of a sudden, I was teaching kids how to fly kites inside a gymnasium with the basketball court, and trying to get the janitor to get every single electric fan he could and put up on all the bleachers to create my own wind inside, and getting
That's it.
creative, right?
Yeah.
But after about 5 or 6 days of being indoors, all of a sudden the weather started to part, it's probably about 10 p.m. We'd had dinner. I was staying in a house with a bunch of other incredible athletes and teachers who were there to share their knowledge with the kids also. And we decided we should go for a walk. It's nearly midnight by this stage, and we should go for a walk and watch the sun set at midnight, which just sounded amazing. We had a couple of dogs with us that needed a walk, and at the last second, one of them said, "Hey, Jen, grab your kite. I really want to see you fly that thing." And so I grabbed my trainer kite. We went out for a walk, and we found an area that I was able to get my kite up in the air. Now, it wasn't the best place for flying a kite because we had the village upwind of us, so the wind was quite turbulent. This kite was going up and down and up and down, and wasn't making me look so good. But the next thing I know, one of the people I was with yelled, "Bear, bear!" And I looked over and saw a polar bear charging towards me.
Oh, wow.
Now, this was something I didn't expect to see
Yeah.
at this particular time. I had thought there was no chance of polar bears that time of year, and all of a sudden there's one charging straight towards me. And it didn't matter how many posters I'd read about what to do if you see a polar bear. You're supposed to wave your arms, you're supposed to hold your ground and not move. My flight response just went into action. I turned around and started running.
I would have too.
I started running, and I saw the backs of the other 3 people I was with also running. And I thought to myself in an instant, okay, I'm doing the right thing. But remember that saying, if you're going to see a bear, don't be the slowest runner in the group.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't consider myself the slowest runner, but due to the circumstances, I was definitely the person at the back.
Yeah.
And I didn't have my skis on at this time. I actually had my Ugg boots on with these over boots over the top. So I wasn't exactly in the best running attire. And the next thing I find myself flat on my face. I had tripped over, and I'm now on the ground. And by the time I got up and turned to look at the bear to see where it was nearly at my kite. Now, my lines are about 20 meters long. You can convert that into feet, but we're talking that bear is so close at this point in time. And the thought in my head was, oh my gosh, this could be it. This might be the end, and it's going to be a polar bear. And I didn't have any weapons with me. The only thing that I still had with me was my kite bar. And I'd realized that the reason why I'd fallen over was I was still attached to my kite. All those safety features that we were starting to get into, one of the safety features is that you're attached with a leash to your kite, so that if you let go of the bar, it doesn't blow away from you and you can pull it back to yourself. But I was trying to run the opposite direction to the wind. So the kite was pulling me one way. I was wanting to run the other. I'd fallen over, and this polar bear was getting way too close. I remember looking into its eyes. I remember those feet. The way they run is so unique, and just feeling this incredible fear of a wild animal being way too close. And I knew at that point I needed to get that leash off, which was velcroed around my wrist on this particular style of kite. And by that point, the guy behind me had seen me fall over, had seen that I was in trouble, and he had stopped and he started yelling, hey bear, and yelling, and I heard him. I was unable to wave my hands because I needed to get that Velcro wrist leash off. And then at the last second, I was able to get the Velcro wrist leash off, let go of the kite, and I watched the bear turn, chuck a Yui, and chase my kite, which was now being blown by the wind away from me.
So it was probably the kite he was chasing, not so much you. It was the kite that caught his attention.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. I truly
Wow.
believe that he didn't really wanna eat me. He was curious of this kite that he'd seen moving around in the sky, and of course, a kite up in the sky can be seen from a lot further distance away,
Yeah.
and, I believe that, my kite saved my life that day.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's an amazing story. But it's also in a way a beautiful story because you're not going to see I you can go to the zoos and you can see animals, but you don't see animals. They're not the same. You know, the wild has been taken out of them just from being captive. But when you're out there, they're just as intrigued about you as you are about them. And so I think that's an amazing thing. And I agree. I think polar bears should be shot with a camera, not a gun. I'm not a fan of hunting polar bear or anything, but I think they would be amazing to see. They're definitely pretty.
Yeah, I really believe in the curiosity of a bear, and, the
Yeah,
polar bear is now my spirit animal. So you've now heard the spirit and story from me, Donald, and, um what happened was after that point in time, polar bear patrol suddenly turned up. Somebody had heard the yelling. We managed to notify them that there was a polar bear inside the village, and polar bear patrol came on their snowmobile, and they had two guns in the back, one that was firing fireworks and the other one had bullets. And I'm so grateful that the bear was not threatening my life at that time, and they shot fireworks at it to scare it back out of the village.
yeah,
But if they had seen it running towards me and threatening my life, yeah, that polar bear may not have been so lucky. And
yeah,
I'm very grateful that the bear and me both got to survive that experience and live to
yeah,
tell the tale.
yeah. Absolutely. I just, when I was reading your bio, I was just picturing um, the two things that I love, I guess, is the outdoors and the animals that you can encounter over there. But I was picturing somebody kite skiing and a bear chasing behind them, and then you came up with this story, and I'm like, exactly.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
before I went up there and I'd mentioned polar bears to some of my friends, they'd said, "Oh, you can just outrun it with the kite and your skis on, or you can jump over the top of it." They had all these scenarios which really didn't play out when
Yeah,
the situation occurred.
but that was cool too that you were able to teach people that probably would have never encountered this, and and again, people up there in that area probably do a lot of living off the land and they prep and plan for winters and stuff like this, and you may have taught them something to help them even just in traveling and getting around. I think that's really cool too.
It is a really neat activity, and, yeah, people are using kites now to cross huge ice fields,
Hmm.
not only in Alaska, but Greenland, Antarctica, anywhere that's covered in ice. Yeah, there's people using the kites for transport. I was also lucky enough that after that situation, we decided that flying kites, might be attracting the bears, and, I was able to change my lessons at the school into teaching these kids how to fly drones. I'm a certified drone pilot as well. And so I had my drone with me and I was able to go into, they already had a class of learning to fly drones, and I was able to impart my knowledge with them and talk about the possibility of using drones for polar bear patrol. And yeah, and I'm hoping that some of that instigation has turned into to some of the new technology that they use for spotting the bears up there these days.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be perfect for that because, again, you're seeing further out with how high up it is. You can set them to fly set routes and run them back to a camera where the patrol is, and they could see it. Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense, you know. Yeah. Wow. Man, what don't you do? Is there anything you don't do?
Donald, I'm not very good at throwing a ball or catching a ball. For some reason, that skill has eluded me my whole life. But
Okay.
I'm happy to give that one up.
I don't think any of those are as exciting as what you do. So, well, Miss, I'm gonna try to say it, Adrenogen, right?
There
Miss
you go.
Adrenogen.
Yep.
I'm gonna bring you forward and give you the opportunity to tell everybody where they can find out about getting some lessons from you, or just meet you, and maybe some places to even purchase some of the equipment that they're going to need.
Well, thank you so much, Donald. I appreciate that. You got the terminology right. They call me Adrenaline Gen, which shortens to Adrenogen, and that's where you're going to find my website at adrenogen.com. You'll find me on YouTube teaching you some lessons about flying kites, both on snow and on the water, so that you can start getting a taste of the sport and start increasing your knowledge. And you can also book me to come and speak. I have so many incredible stories to tell, and you've just heard a few of them. So if you'd like me to come and speak at an event to help motivate or inspire you or your team or your family, please reach out to me. I would love to share that. And I'm also in the middle of writing a children's book talking about the joy of flying kites and how it can really get kids away from those computer screens and outside flying kites, bring them so much joy and give them a real connection with the wind and weather. So thank you so much, Donald. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I could see a corporate booking you for like a team building event, because this would be perfect for something like that. So I think
Thank
I think any of these big corporate companies out there, um, man, they're going to help their employees with some team building, some exercise, and some knowledge. So I think and a great time. It definitely build that cohesion. So absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate all the stories that you gave us, and I'm looking forward to following you on YouTube. I will also make sure that your YouTube channel is in the notes, so anybody can find it and subscribe to you as well. Like I said, I was checking it out prior to the event. There is some amazing stuff. You put a lot of work into it, so I strongly encourage people to go out there and take a look for themselves.
Thank you so much for the compliment, Donald, and thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And thanks to all the listeners out there. I hope you enjoyed the stories.
All right. Well, I'm going to go through the exit video. If you just give me a second, I'll be right with you. Yeah, this is definitely a perfect thing for some team building. Being from the military, I know how important it is to have a team. This is a perfect thing to have her come and talk to your employees or your organizations, and then give some lessons at the end of it. That would be perfect. If you're interested in this, make sure you go to that website that's been running down to the bottom. Like I said, I've already checked it out. You can get the gear you need. You can see videos and different things. She's put a lot of work into her YouTube channel, and I'll put that in the notes as well for you guys, and on her website. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I know I learned a ton. I had a great time. Love the stories. And I want you all to remember, no matter what, don't let the day kick your ass. Kick the day's ass.